and welcome to the Amazon Web Services Partner Webinar Series. Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever your day finds you. Our topic today features how to deliver high-performance digital marketing applications on AWS. I'm your host and moderator, Sherry Sullivan. I'm with the Partner Marketing Team here in Seattle, and I'd like to welcome you. Before we begin, I'll start with just a couple of housekeeping items. I'd like to let folks know that while your lines are muted, we do invite you to submit questions anytime during this webcast simply using the Q&A widget in your browser. We'll take some time at the close of this webcast for answering your questions. I'd also like to let folks know that we do make these presentations available, and you can find the AWS content on SlideShare as well as YouTube channels. I'm very pleased to be joined today by CSS Corp, who is one of our premier AWS consulting partners. And we'll begin with an overview of AWS and reasons that enterprises are turning to the cloud computing. And we'll be followed by CSS providing us with a digital marketing solutions and what they term zero to launch in 10 minutes. We'll wrap up, as I said, with some Q&A. So with that, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers today. Please join me in welcoming Vishaan Ire, who's the Vice President of CSS Corp, along with Raj Kumar Samkumar, who's the Director of Solutions Engineering, and our very own Matt Yanchin, who's Solution Architect here at Amazon Web Services. So I'd like to have you take it away, Matt.
Thanks, Sherry. So I'd like to take a few minutes before CSS takes the reins to just introduce the Amazon Web Services Cloud Computing Platform, just a basic familiarization with what we have to offer and how people are using us today to accomplish their business needs. So Amazon Web Services, as I'm sure most of you know, has a lot of services. We have over 30 services, 25 major services as seen in our web management console. And basically we support any workload, any cloud workload, or pretty much any workload that you're doing in terms of IT in your business today. Our services are roughly divided into deployment and administration, app services, compute, storage, database, networking, and global infrastructure. We have a combination of sort of core fundamental services that often come for free, such as VPC for networking and others that we'll dig into a little bit more detail later. We also have some more managed services, such as our database services like RDS or Redshift or DynamoDB that provide, for example, in the case of RDS, core services such as MySQL or Oracle or SQL Server databases, but managed by AWS. We have over hundreds of thousands of customers these days in over 190 countries spanning the globe. Startups like Pinterest, Dropbox, Spotify, Instagram, but also major global and Fortune 500 enterprises such as Shell, Samsung, Netflix, GE, and Bristol-Myers Squibb. We're also working a lot in the public sector these days, over 500 public sector institutions, and I think over 2,000 educational institutions these days are using the AWS to accomplish their cloud computing needs and to meet the needs of their business. What's interesting about AWS is that we have such a variety of services and really such a wide-ranging platform and such an incredible scale that you can use this for every imaginable use case. Everything from batch computing to traditional web hosting to genomics and more big data workloads and everything in between. As you see from some of the use cases up on the screen here, we have a variety of enterprises in the financial space, in the pharma space, startups, web, digital marketing, of course, using the AWS platform to do all sorts of things. Really, it's up to you. We have so many services these days and partners like CSS to help you accomplish your goals that really you can use AWS to realize all of your needs. We're also growing really quickly. If we go back to 2003, Amazon.com retail business was a $5 billion retail business back in 2003. Fast forwarding to, well, now in 2012, we're adding on average every day enough new capacity to the AWS cloud to be able to power that whole $5 billion business like Amazon.com was back in 2003. So to put that in another context, you could basically add a new Fortune 500 $5 billion business to the AWS cloud every single day. That's the rate that we're growing these days. So let's talk about why businesses are choosing AWS for their cloud computing needs today. First and foremost, and I think this is what most people associate with Amazon Web Services, you pay for what you use. With traditional infrastructure, you kind of have to guess how much you're going to need, often over the next 3 to 7 years. Not only that, but the provisioning time, the time it takes to order your new equipment, your servers and everything else, and actually getting it, racking it, getting it started, takes a long time. With Amazon, you only pay for what you use. When you're not using it, you can shut it down and you're not paying for it. So that frees up money that you could be spending on other things. It also makes the difficulty of forecasting accurately over long periods go away. So again, with AWS, you pay for what you need and when you need it. It's also free to get started. I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize with AWS is we have something called the free tier, and you can just log into the AWS web console and start using AWS services right away. And in fact, I challenge every one of you to give it a shot using our free tier to see what kind of applications you can build. And in fact, we have some users doing extremely powerful workloads on the free tier. And that will allow you to get familiar with our services and then grow from there. Of course, we're probably the only company that I know of anyway that has a long history of lowering prices. This slide is a bit old. We have, I don't know how it is, probably closer to 30 price reductions since launch. As we grow, as we innovate, as we scale, we pass those price reductions on to customers. And the scale, the pace of how we're growing, like you saw on the previous slide, allows us to do that. We run our business on a high volume, low margin basis. That's pretty unique. So basically this combination of high scale and low margins allows us to pass the savings on to our customers. It's really important with AWS that sure you pay less and yeah, you only pay for what you need, but importantly for your business, to meet the needs of your business, for example, a website with spiky traffic, AWS provides an elastic platform, so you don't need to forecast demand or buy up front. Let's take Mother's Day, for example. If you're a retailer and you're selling things that you might want to get for your mother on Mother's Day is going to be your peak year, or your peak day of the year, and you're going to have to buy to peak in most cases in a traditional sense. With AWS, you can scale up to meet peak demand and then scale back down when you don't need it anymore. So this is important in the retail space, but also important, for example, in the digital marketing space like we're talking about today. Campaigns are often short-lived and very spiky. For example, take major sporting events. You may run an ad during a major sporting event and get a huge rush of traffic for just a few minutes following the ad. AWS allows you to scale up and meet that demand and then tone it down when you no longer need it. This is actually probably my favorite. I think a lot of people associate AWS with scale, with low cost, but for me, AWS is all about innovation. AWS allows you to fail fast, to experiment quickly, and really change IT from being a roadblock to being an enabler. I think in the past, people saw the procurement cycle, the long setup cycles, as something that was often a barrier to new business from a cost perspective or just an operational perspective. And with AWS, you can quickly spin up new infrastructure, quickly spin up a whole new environment, a whole new app, a whole new campaign. And if it doesn't work out, just shut it down. Or if it's very short-lived, just run it for the time you need it and then shut it down again. And this really enables new business opportunities and really companies to be agile and experiment. Along the same lines, most of us aren't in the business of infrastructure. It's not core to our business. It doesn't differentiate us from our customers. You setting up a router and some servers in a data center doesn't make your core business any different from anyone else's. In fact, it just takes away resources and money and time from what you should be doing, your core business. So AWS gets rid of this undifferentiated heavy lifting. We take care of the data centers, the power, the storage, the labor in some cases, the networking, all that stuff that isn't core to your business. You can essentially allow AWS to do for you. Well, like I always say, sometimes you get big in Japan. And when you get big in Japan, using a platform like AWS allows you to grow your business to Japan and all over the world. We operate in 5 out of 7 continents today. We have major points of presence all over the world. And what you see here on the screen, the big yellow dots are our regions. And regions are collections of availability zones. And availability zones are in turn collections of geographically separate data centers. So we have collections of data centers, availability zones within regions spread across 5 continents around the world. So the little blue dots you see are where we have a content distribution network and our DNS service, so spread even further. Again, this slide is just a few weeks old, but it's already out of date. We have 2 new edge locations in India, in Chennai and Mumbai. So our regions are in California, Oregon. We have a special region for the government called GovCloud. We have one on the East Coast in Virginia. We have one in Brazil, one in Ireland to meet the needs of customers who have EU requirements. And then in Asia, we have Singapore, Tokyo, and Sydney. And in addition, we have all those edge locations. So truly global coverage. Last but certainly not least, in fact, this often comes up first when I'm talking to customers, is security. We really build AWS to the highest security standards. And some of you might have questions about security in the cloud, but our biggest and often some of our most conservative customers have found that not only are we able to meet their security requirements, but often we can provide an even better security profile than what they can deliver internally. We invest a lot in security, and the fact that we incorporate all these requirements and these certifications from our most security-conscious customers, whether they're in the public sector or in the finance space or other security-conscious areas, means that all of our customers on the platform benefit from that. And in fact, for those of you who've gone through certification and compliance, you'll know that it is often a huge operational burden and often quite expensive, and just using the AWS platform offloads that to AWS. Whether it's ISO 27001 or SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, or even more public sector-oriented certifications such as ITAR or FIPS. In the digital marketing space or retail space, PCI comes up. A lot of companies building PCI-compliant workloads and apps on AWS. In the healthcare space, you can build HIPAA-compliant apps on us. And even in media, we recently have MPAA certification. I like those two quotes up there, particularly one by Gus Hunt on CTO of the CIA. And like he likes to say, AWS allows you to have a polymorphic surface. And for me, this is the biggest benefit from a security perspective for AWS in that you can adapt, you can deploy new regions, you can add more capacity as needed during a security event. And this kind of scale that AWS provides you allow you to be really nimble from a security perspective. So basically, moving to AWS provides you with a secure cloud computing platform, gives you tons of scale at low cost, and enables you to do new things with your business. So with that, I'd like to pass control over to my colleagues at CSS. I work a lot with CSS pretty much on a daily basis. They're a great partner, and I'm looking forward to this presentation. So over to you guys.
Thanks, Matt. This is Vishy speaking. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to introduce you to CSS as a company, and then we're going to dwell upon what we actually talk about, zero to launch in 10 minutes for a campaign. So CSS is a global IT services company. We are spread across almost every continent, with our largest delivery centers based in Chennai, Manila in Philippines, Poland in Europe, Salt Lake City and Texas in US. Across the board, we have about 5,500 employees, catering to multiple engagements that we've been doing for the last 14 years. We have a very strong delivery processes involved, and we are certified on CMI level 5. Obviously, all our services are on I2. We're certified on the COPC from a support perspective. Our focus primarily is on OpEx optimization framework. So basically, all our services are around how do you, reduce your OpEx cost and so on and so forth. Largely, our focus in terms of services are primarily from a cloud-led infrastructure services, where we do help customers to adopt cloud for various use cases that they have. We work on a strategy, build them, do the transformation of the strategy into actual action, and provide support, which includes infrastructure management services, help desk and service desk, NOC, and security operations. The second line of business goes into mobility, where we enable applications which are already on into well enablement and across all the platforms that we have. The third one is analytics-based support, where we primarily focus on a lot of OEM manufacturers and stuff, where we handle calls for them from a support perspective or from an infrastructure alert management perspective. We can kind of look at analysis and bring out the various different frameworks which can go back into better service to the customers. We have a long history with Amazon, pretty much from the time that Amazon started way back in their S3 and Simple Queue service. And over a period of time, we've developed multiple use cases and also technology frameworks which helps customers use Amazon based on what their requirements are. Some of them, are fairly open in the market. People have used it. They're available for downloads from a storage perspective, storage management perspective, and also platform-based services and stuff. So our services are very, very aligned to AWS perspective. They, from a global presence, from a benchmarking and scale, we do a lot of performance engineering and load testing based on using Amazon platform that you just heard from Matt. Our delivery centers, like I mentioned, are across the globe. So we have a local presence to actually have, support customers in that specific region. In addition, while there is a lot of, questions and security aspects of, how Amazon from a platform perspective provides, which you just heard from Matt, in terms of your specific environment that you deploy on Amazon, we provide services on vulnerability testing, security and compliance from the perspective of where it is, and obviously, data protection in the geo-based architecture on multiple regions and stuff. All our services comes in from a truly managed services option. You get we have a SaaS-based portal through which you get to see what is the activity that are happening. You can interact with my NOC and SOC people through the portal. You can see dashboards, reporting capability, and all of that comes as part of the service. 24/7 monitoring services, migration mechanisms, and we also do capacity management. I mean, we just saw an example about scalability, which is involved. So obviously, this is we provide a lot of our customers in terms of planning for campaigns, how quickly we can actually take the campaigns to the market. And there are certain frameworks that we have developed, which you'll hear from my colleague here in the next few slides. Raj?
Thanks, Vishy. Sherry and Matt to set the platform right. Digital marketing. I'm going to start this session with an introduction to digital marketing to set the context right. With each new day, the emphasis on new technology to reach customers through websites, mobile apps, social media, and other interactive means brings businesses of all exciting sizes into opportunities for visibility and growth. Digital marketing is a marketing that makes use of electronic devices such as computers, tablets, smartphones, cell phones, digital billboards, and game consoles to engage the customers and other business partners. Internet marketing is a major component of digital marketing, and to put it simple, digital marketing can be defined as promoting brands or products and services using all forms of digital advertising. Marketing technologist. Through the webinar, you will hear a lot about technology and marketing. To ensure that we're all on the same page, let me make a couple of references that's to our benefit. Gartner says by 2017, the CMO will spend more on IT than that of a CIO. That's a big statement. And marketing is actually purchasing significant marketing-related technology and services from their own capital and expenses budget. And that's both outside the control of internal IT and in conjunction with them. Scott Brinker, the author of Chief Marketing Technologist blog, recently stated, marketing has become a technology-powered discipline, and therefore marketing organizations must infuse technical capabilities into their DNA. Another thing that has become clear is that the technology advances in some places more than others, and technology, therefore, is somewhat dependent on precursors. What you start out with will actually help you to determine what you end up with. Forrester coins a terminology, Chief Business Technology Officer, and that's how CIOs are referred to as we move forward. And we'll talk about more on technology readiness and cloud, how the cloud adoption strategies would help to address technology challenges, specifically on timeliness and capacity. Okay. We've orchestrated a digital marketing platform that hosts a simple website to show a demonstration of how quickly you can deploy a marketing campaign in the cloud. This is purely about speed to market. And I'm going to pause for a minute to initiate the deployment process. Using our orchestration and deployment automation engine, a click of a button is going to trigger a series of programmed action. This basically is our management console. and hope everyone can see the console here. And all I'm going to initiate is basically a click of a button, and I'm going to hit launch. And that's actually going to trigger a series of action. And let's pause it here and get to the AWS console. And I'm actually looking at all the instances here. And if you see, there are a lot of instances with basically a series of 14 539s, but you see a new one spinning up, the 172013. That's basically the launch trigger. And it's going to spin up a set of instances. So if you look at, there's already been one that's in the running state. And as I'm going to refresh, you're going to see more instances come in. And parallelly, you will also see one more load balancer spin up. Yep, it's already there. That's the 172013. That's the new one that's spin up. So let's take a pause from this. I'm actually going to leave it some time till the initiation process is going to get completed, and I'll get back to the presentation. Why? We've actually placed the webinar in such a way that we're going to answer three main questions: why, what, and how. To begin with, why are we talking about cloud for digital marketing needs? Are there any challenges? And if so, are these challenges basically addressed by cloud services, or can they be addressed? Oh yes, that's exactly what we're going to see now. Marketing is mostly near to a real-time experience, and comparatively, let's ask a question: how fast is my IT and procurement process? How do I make the ends meet to have an effective business model? So basically, the IT readiness has to be in line with that of the marketing readiness for a real effective business model, and that's going to be a cost-effective business model. Digital marketing challenges. There are multiple challenges in digital marketing, and these challenges can further classified into marketing, creative, IT-related, and hosting. Getting into the details, marketing challenges are mostly associated with technology and budget limitations. Creative challenges are on standardization and compliance, especially when there are going to be multiple creative agencies involved in the campaign. Access control at different levels adds up to the equation. Lack of innovation, new technology, and security contributes to the IT-related challenges. And here, specifically when we talk about the IT-related challenges, capacity management is a top challenge in this section, and that's one of the key agenda of any of the CIOs, especially when we talk about CapEx and OpEx. Hosting challenges are again going to be mostly contractual, but there are challenges related to standardization at a platform level, which implies that there is definitely a requirement and need for a global hosting and management platform. And this has to be coupled with an agile delivery model. Okay, so we've seen what the challenges are, and let's see what in terms of how the solution is going to evolve to meet these challenges. With all these challenges, what's our solution to these challenges? So to sum up, we need a global platform, a process for standardization, elastic capacity to scale up or scale down, and an orchestration toolkit to reduce and eliminate the repetitive action, and also to fasten the speed to market by reducing the lead time. So basically, we've considered about these 4 points. And with these points in mind, we have come up with a solution framework. This is a theoretical framework for a digital marketing platform, which is actually built on AWS. This framework addresses support services and IT lifecycle management of all the assets in the cloud. So basically, this will address, once you migrate into the cloud, what are going to be your framework processes around the lifecycle management of all your assets that you move to the cloud. The core engine to this strategy includes tools, platform, support center for coordination, collaboration, and tiered management for a seamless operation. Basically, all the stakeholders here will interface with the core engine, and that would be in multiple aspects like your service delivery, solution reporting, service request, billing, change management, quality management, and so on. And the above strategic framework we've just displayed here evolved into a design framework. And this is how the design framework looks like. This basically is your second strategic framework once you have that strategized as part of your design. First step is to provision and orchestrate the infrastructure component and then design the system services around it. So this would be a basic key point as and when you orchestrate or basically initiate your migration into the cloud. The system services actually forms the core of the whole engine because they will form the base of the platform, and once they have the base platform ready, the service delivery process around the base platform will be framed. The provisioning and orchestration process will also include a controlled self-provisioning process with automation built in. And the system services here, they generally include monitoring backups, security and integration processes. The service delivery component, that's the outermost scale here, that should include service layers for infrastructure management, and we call it infra portal, and that basically handles your entire IT lifecycle management. Standardization process for a global scale of 24/7/365 monitoring and management. That's also a key. It's more about once we position the move, after we take the move into the cloud, how do we do the ongoing monitoring and management? And once we had this design, we had to next get into a phase of implementation. How do I put the strategy and the design into actual work? That's basically your implementation. This might look a little bit complicated, but it's not so. This is actually a cluster or series of all the tools that actually host the entire digital marketing platform. And you need these tools, you believe it or not, irrespective of you host your digital marketing platform in a co-location or in your data center, you would have already built in all these tools. And this is the actual implementation framework, and it includes multiple tool sets for every function of the framework, and they're very closely integrated. You need to note a key point here. These tools are loosely coupled from an infrastructure standpoint. That's basically for a high availability and redundancy purpose. But they're very closely integrated from a framework standpoint, and that's a key, and that's what we've learned so far in all our implementations with multiple customer engagements. And the key components here basically includes an entry point for all the stakeholders. So that's going to be a web, phone, or an email interface, and then a channel interface for configuration management, and a security framework for log management and WAF. So that basically forms any security layer on top of the baseline Amazon security, and that's going to be at an application level. Your monitoring and backups for all the business services, and in fact any business service and component and assets in the cloud. The continuous integration, that's a key framework. We've actually used Jenkins for that. And that basically forms the engine for monitoring all the system services. So we've gone to the next level in terms of we have a service to monitor all the systems. But in terms of after we have the monitoring system, what do we do to monitor those monitoring systems? And that's basically coming from the integration services. And the workflow actually operates in this fashion. Agency, brand, or any of the entry points makes a request for an infrastructure to host a campaign. And this could be on the cloud, this could be on a virtual space. But typically for our context today, it's going to be on Amazon cloud. And once this is received by CSS, the request is validated, compared with the existing provisioned capacity. And with that comparison, there is a call taken if I have to go ahead and provision a new infra, or I'm going to use the existing infra. And that's going to be a call that has to be taken between supply and demand, or between demand and capacity within the existing infrastructure. Once the provisioning is initiated, the orchestration engine that we have built in actually starts its deployment and integration process. And it's not just provisioning, but it's the entire integration process, because it also includes registering the new assets that's built on the cloud into the monitoring platform, integrate with the other system services, registering the services with our SOC, that's your security team, and updating the configuration management database through a few API commands. And then finally trigger a notification to let us know that each and every step throughout the course of action has been completed. Now with this kind of a tool set, and this is a delivery framework, and this delivery framework once implemented, there are a few benefits that we have seen so far in the cloud, and they're very transparent enough to see these benefits in cloud. And those benefits, how do they get into your business, and how do they get translated into your business benefits? And that's exactly what this solution provides you, and especially coupled with the cloud services. So as Matt mentioned earlier, there are other cloud benefits like your optimization and your elasticity, your scalability, security, reliability, and so on. With our solution, these cloud benefits are directly transformed into business benefits. And when you talk about business benefits, they're going to be like faster go-to-market, capacity management. That's basically handle the load at will, pay for what you use, a single collaborative platform for multiple parties to coordinate, and also make sure that you benchmark the infrastructure to make sure that your application handles the load. And in fact, we're going to talk about how to benchmark an infrastructure as we move forward. Now, with all this said, with your challenges and what's our solution, now let's see how do we do this basically. So all well said in terms of we have everything in paper. Now, how do we put this into action? So we saw what our solution was, and now let's see how the solution can be implemented. And in fact, this is one of our existing implementation, and we have taken a particular component of that implementation to showcase that this is going to be possible. And we're going to see two practical use cases here, and it's a live demo. The first one is about automated provisioning and deployment process. And the second one is going to be load generation and performance testing. That's basically to benchmark the infrastructure and also to showcase the elasticity of cloud and how best you can leverage it for your business. So I'm going to step into the live demo. Before that, I've got a couple of slides. And this is basically to tell you what we are going to showcase in the demo. So I've put together a mind map to detail the infrastructure components involved in the demonstration. We've actually considered a highly available two-tier infrastructure for demonstration. So the click of a button, you would have seen I initially took a pause to initiate a set of orchestrated action by a click of a button. And that has actually launched a pair of scalable instances under a load balancer, a multi-RDS instance in terms of multi-AZ. And also our orchestration process also took care of monitoring, registering the environment on auto-scaling process, and SNS topics for basically pushing the auto-scaling process and based on whatever load that's going to receive. Now, I will, when I get into the screencast, I'm going to showcase what are the series of actions that were triggered as a result of click of a button. This is basically a theoretical view of the overall demo. And if you look at this mind map, this actually reflects how we simulate the automatic capacity management. And this is the infra that will be considered for the load testing, auto scaling, basically the capacity side of it in terms of elasticity. A load balancer, a couple of web servers, and they are also under an auto scaling group. And then a multi-tier RDS instance. This is a highly available two-tier infrastructure again. And this is configured to scale up and down based on demand, and this is going to be at will. In this section, you will see a set of toolkits that we have used. And to set the context right, CSS Corp is a services organization. And these toolkits that were being developed are as part of optimizing the delivery and operational efforts that we put as part of managed services. And we use these tool sets to optimize our customer spend on IT infra, and that's the context. Now let's switch over to the screencast. Yep, I believe everyone can see my screen on the screencast. So now this is the series of action that it has committed in terms of API calls. And this basically is from a tool perspective and the orchestration. And what does that translate to us? So if you would have seen, I haven't refreshed the screen. So you see the same sequence and the new sequence 172013. And you will also see, yep, so you do see a set of other instances launched, and these instances were launched automatically. And parallelly, you would have also got an ELB here. And let me get into the ELB to show what it has. So if you look at the initial ELB, the 14539, that's what we deployed initially. That's not done as part of automation. But the one which is done as part of automation, the 172013, now that's launched a new website by itself. And assuming all the orchestration process is done, we should see the website live. Here we go. And this website is right now launched. This is again a templatized website, but it is launched by a click of a button. And if you would have seen the timeline through which this was launched, it could have been about 10 minutes or so. And that's exactly what we wanted to showcase. And if you look at the overall engagement here in terms of what's the complete deployment process, we have launched a couple of web servers. That's the 172013. These are the two web servers. And there's also an RDS server that's taking care of the registration process. And it has also launched an ELB here. And with that, it has also registered 2 instances under the ELB as part of automation. And by that, our monitoring system that runs at the back end, you can see the systems automatically getting registered to the monitoring environment. The one with the numbers, so 172013. Yep. So this is the 14539, which we have deployed initially. That actually got translated into the registration process, and it has registered 1 ELB and a server here. And the rest of the registration process is actually getting started. And it would take some time for it to get registered. But that's the power of orchestration. And as a part of the same section, we also have to do one more session, and that's about elasticity. Now, we have considered 172013. Now, let's consider the other deployment. The other deployment with 14539, I'm going to apply a filter here on 14539 to get these instances. So it's very evident that you see only 2 instances here, right? And they both are micro instances. And parallelly, I'm going to apply a filter here with the same 14539. And this is going to be a single load balancer. And I'm going to launch. And what you see here is our load generator that's again hosted on Amazon. And this load generator is basically going to simulate a load into the web servers that we have launched. We've done all the prep work, and the load generator is live now, and it's ready to generate the load. And this is going to be a manual ramp up that we are going to showcase. We're going to start with 100. That's basically the number of users getting into the system. Yep, and you see the number of users here, that's the 100. And I'm basically going to ramp it up at a rate of 100 users every 30 seconds. And as I'm ramping up the load, you will see new instances getting launched, and that's going to be the use case for the elasticity component. And to make sure that I show both of these in parallel, I'm going to get these 2 screens organized. I'm going to ramp up the load by 100 again. And let's give it some time. And as we hit, we've already benchmarked this infra, and the break-even point is somewhere around 400 to 500 users. Since it's a micro instance, just for the demonstration purpose, and also we don't clog the traffic, we wanted to take lowest bare minimum instance that we can launch, and it's going to be auto scale. accordingly with the number of users. And this is going to be a pure use case, and this can be translated into complex scenarios in terms of user registrations and so on. The tool is capable of doing that, but for the demonstration purpose, and we don't have much time, we wanted to showcase how many instances we can launch. Here you go. And with around 300, if you see, you have a new instance launched, and that's basically getting initialized now. And that's the new ID, the 14539 series. You would have seen a new instance getting launched. And as we ramp up the load, the number of latency requests that it can handle, or even the number of input requests that it would get, that will get translated. And please note, the name here that we are referring to is 14539, and I go to the same ELB, the 14539. And this is the old one that we are currently using for your ramping up. And the site is still loading, and parallelly we are ramping up the load. And this typically gives you overview in terms of how you can leverage your elasticity in the cloud and make sure that you pay for what you use. Yep, you see another server coming in. So now you have 4 servers. And that's basically the power of elasticity. And when we talk about how better you can use this elasticity to make sure that your application uses optimal performance. And for this, if this has to be provisioned in a traditional data center, imagine about how many servers should have been brought and provisioned, and what is the duration of the lead time, and is my marketing campaign going to wait for the same. And you see the new one launching in. This is going to be the 5th one. And we have provisioned it in such a way that all these servers are going to be micro instances, and you can tune it accordingly. If all these servers has to be benchmarked at a X large level, you can do the same, and you can also tune the server accordingly to handle the peak load. And this again, we are not simulating gradual load. If you look at the graph here, that's going to be unexpected user traffic. You never know how many hits you're going to get for any campaign. And this basically is going to be an evidence in terms of what can you expect of the unexpected, and how you can make sure that you leverage the benefits of the cloud to ensure that your sustenance model on the business is there, and you save the brand reputation. And this site, let's assume that it's one of your critical campaigns, and this site is still loading up. And imagine sudden traffic coming into your site, and it's still serving the traffic. And I'm also going to, once I hit peak load, I can keep ramping up the load, but with the limitation of time, I want to stop here and start ramping down, because I also wanted to showcase here what we can build as an application in the cloud, that it can also take the reverse demand and make sure that it can shrink your capacity at will. And that's a key. You don't want to provision 20 servers for expecting a load of only 5 servers. Now here we are at 800, and with that break-even point, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 servers. And just before I move out of this infra, I just wanted to showcase to you what is with the monitoring system here. Throughout the ramp-up of load, none of your servers have crossed 80. And for IT professionals here who are working on infra ops, who are working on system center management, who are working in basically the data center management, they know what this means. And let's say that if it has crossed 80%, it would have brought down the website. And that limitation is a part of your tuning exercise, and that comes in as and when you tune this infrastructure more. And these tests basically gives you a visibility of how much your infrastructure can handle and how much of scale that you can provide to the infrastructure. Now parallelly, I'm going to ramp up the load. I'm going to ramp it up at a rate of 200 so that we can quickly see the scale down. And from 800, I'm going to the 600 users. Yep, you straight away see the elasticity coming in. You see 2 systems go down, and that's about the ramp down of the load. And consistently now your user count has come down, and you have only 600 users hitting your website. And still during the course, there is not an error on the website. It is still loading. Yep. And I go ahead and ramp it up a little further down. And the ramp up and ramp down is what is shown here in terms of client-side stats. You can also have the visibility of these stats. So what does this translate into? And this basically gives you an overview, or it gives you a visualization of what cloud can offer and how best you can leverage cloud. Now, as a result of this, what could be the next step? Once I benchmark this infra and I know that this is my minimum scale and this is my maximum scale, what are the next steps that I may have to do? I need to make sure I tune my auto-scaling group accordingly, and that serves traffic at will. And that could be to manage a sudden outburst campaign. And let's say that you make an advertisement in a Super Bowl event, and there's going to be a rush of traffic coming into your web servers. And at that point in time, you don't have to provision infrastructure, and you spend quality time in terms of initially preparing the infrastructure and leaving it. And then the infrastructure by itself, in terms of the orchestration that we built in, it takes care of ramping up or ramping down the infrastructure based on whatever the requirement is. And this keeps fluctuating. And if you see, now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 instances running. We scaled from 2 instances up to 6, and now we have come down to 4. And as we go down with the number of users, you will definitely see that the minimum scale will come down to 2 instances, and you will still have 2 instances across AZs load balanced. And once that is load balanced, then depending on how much number of users that you're going to get, you'll see that traction. Good. Now, I'm going to take a pause here because I believe I've given that visibility in terms of what the elasticity is all about, and also how better you can leverage in terms of benchmarking the elasticity. And then let's get into the presentation. I will take a minute to arrange my screen. Correct. So now we've come back to the screencast in terms of a use case. This is a use case. So whatever that we have seen so far, this has been implemented for one of our existing customers, and that's the use case we wanted to showcase here. For a customer, we built the entire digital marketing platform in the cloud, and we are currently managing it for them. And that's the number of websites or the campaigns that we are talking about here is huge, with about, say, 3,000 odd websites and about 5 to 6 campaigns every quarter. And our solution basically reflected in a standard 7x times faster, scalable, and a monitored environment. So what do I mean by that? Initially, when they were having the same infrastructure in a traditional data center, they were able to provision the cloud, the infrastructure elements or components to host a website for about a couple of weeks. And today, that process of provisioning a website between start to end is getting done in 2 days. That's what we're talking about, 7x times faster, and it's a monitored environment, and there's enough security compliance on the environment through the SOC operations as well. And this particular solution for sure resulted in cost benefits and performance benefits, and by now you should have definitely imagined what kind of cost benefits and performance benefits that someone could derive from this scalable environment and how better we can leverage it. This is one of the good slides that will summarize the entire lifecycle management of how the whole move works and how CSS operates. CSS traditionally has been a managed services organization and will continue to be a managed services organization, and people, process, technology is our differentiator. With the innovative toolkit that we got from the R&D or the innovation wing of CSS, that basically about 20% of our revenue is being invested on innovation, and that innovation basically has to be passed directly back to the customer in terms of cost benefits. And that, with a proven delivery execution framework, we actually deliver a truly global, faster, scalable, optimized, compliant, secure IT infrastructure, and make sure we manage it. And that IT infrastructure can host any of your business services in the cloud. And today the use case could have been hosting a website on a cloud or handling a web campaign in the cloud. But with this kind of a model, you can take any of your business service into the cloud, provided you build all the services around it and you make the infrastructure as a platform to host your business service. And that's exactly what we do. With that, I hand it over to Vishy for differentiator and closure note. Vishy, over to you.
Thanks, Raj. So kind of quickly wrap it up here. So obviously you saw the power of using cloud for your capacity planning and short-term planning in a really quick time. Technically, in the last 15-20 minutes, we actually set up a scaling system, and we saw the traffic go up and break it down also. So Amazon obviously provides obviously no upfront cost from a testing out perspective, very low ongoing cost from a utilization perspective. Speed and agility, obviously you can deploy as quickly as and use it and throw and technically leave the infrastructure and you want. They are present globally, so obviously you can get the scale of launching your instances across multiple regions. CSS, from a perspective of being a partner with Amazon, the focus on our exercise is primarily providing high-tech solutions spanning across all the application product lifecycle that we enhance our customers' experience. Our strong focus is on the innovation, which is obviously is a result of our independent organization from the labs, where we get a lot of automation framework and stuff like that. We use it in our service back to our customers. Understanding our customer challenges, solutioning to address a specific challenge, supported by a very strong delivery methodology with ITIL standards and security and everything else, helps us to provide service to multiple customers that we are working on. Technical writing and process documentation, consulting are all the areas that we kind of make a differentiation in the market. The innovations from a CSS lab in terms of frameworks and stuff, one of it which you saw right now from an orchestration engine, similar to that, we have a few other things. And on top of it all, my services are truly managed and on a shared basis with a multilingual capability across service desk to level 3 architects across the board. With that, I think we're pretty much towards the end of it. Sherry, back to you.
Thank you, Vishy, and thank you, Raj, for a great demo showing us how we can execute quickly to launch our campaigns. And thank you, Matt, for an overview of AWS. So with that, folks, if you've joined us midstream, we do invite you to submit your questions. We've got just a few moments. We'll tie off, and if we don't get to your questions, be assured that we will follow up with you directly. Raj, a question that just came in for you as you were showing your demo. The question is, you're showing a website that only has static content, or is it dynamic content as well? Can you articulate that?
Sure. For the case that we showcased, it's a static content, but we can deploy the same model for dynamic content, but we have to do some tuning to the load testing or the way in which we do the load test, because this is just a load test that we did on loading the website, but we can simulate the same load test in terms of user registration, in terms of navigation of the page, and multiple other activities. And for auto-scaling purposes, there's only one key differentiator when you have dynamic content in terms of you need to take care of shared storage for your dynamic content, and how do you architect the solution.
Thank you, Raj. Another question that we have is, and I'll address this to either you, Vishy, or you, Raj, how do you address security-related concerns during a cloud migration project?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Sherry. So there are actually two components of security in terms of cloud. So one is at an infrastructure level, and other one, anything on top of the operating system and so on. So infrastructure level security, we go by best practices of Amazon in terms of how do we configure the security groups, how do we configure the virtual private cloud and other activities. When it comes to anything on top of the operating system in terms of how your data is encrypted, where do you store your data, and do you have a PII-related compliance? Because for web hosting specifically, there are specific compliance related to PII data. Customer information of Europe has to stay only in Europe, same for other regions. And we specifically have SOC services around it. And that's, again, a use case for one of our customer where we deployed log collectors in multiple geos and made sure that the websites are deployed within that particular region, and also the log collectors are also deployed within the region so that website information or the customer data doesn't cross the geo limitation. And one key differentiator from Amazon and CSS that would add to the equation is about the global presence. Depending upon the requirement of where do you want to position your website or your business service, that can be done with Amazon's global presence. And depending upon where do you want the services to be delivered in terms of people who are handling that data, we can make sure that we provision the managed services from that particular geo based on CSS geo presence.
Sherry, let me just add one point to that. From a security perspective, while Amazon platform certainly provides certain amount of infrastructure security and aspects of guidelines and etc. stuff, any organization wanting to use Amazon obviously will have to build an IT security policy on what needs to happen. With all those policies up to the lowest level of communications and workflow can actually be deployed on Amazon. That's basically what Raj was talking about. We can help you build a security policy, deploy it on your environment, and continue to serve you and ensure those are followed.
Great, thank you, Vishy and Raj. Another question that has come in is, and I'll point this back to the CSS team, the question is, if we start a website using micro instance and wish to switch to a larger instance, how is this handled without loss of data?
Sure. So there are actually two ways you can do it. The bottom line here is you need to make sure that the application is designed for load balancing. And during all the architecting of the solution, you need to make sure that you don't use the root volumes to be from the direct EC2 instance as EBS drive. It has to be from separately attached EC2 drives or the EBS volumes separately. And when you do that, you can detach those EBS volumes onto new type of instances. But from our experience, our recommendation is to make sure that start with, for a production campaign or for a production website, start with large instance and scale that horizontally in terms of number of instances. The scaling in terms of one level of instance to the other, in terms of vertical scaling, typically that can be in a dev or stage environment, but not very much recommended for a production environment.
Great, thank you, Raj. And one final question, and I will again point this back to you, Vishy or Raj, is what recommendations would you have for others who today are exploring cloud or moving to the cloud? Besides connecting with you, and we have your website up and your email, Vasi, what recommendations would you have for customers today?
I would say strategizing would be the key, and in terms of how do you take this strategy into the implementation. Start with the business services that are less critical into the cloud, and do not try to replicate your infrastructure as is in the cloud. That may not work out. You need to build a lot of services around it for certain things to work out. And you may not have all the services in the cloud that is present in your traditional data center. What do I mean by that? You may have to slightly tune your application to fit that of the cloud. But as you move forward, you will get more and more services in the cloud. One best example is about RDS. Initially, we did not have RDS with Amazon, and we started to deploy all the databases in EC2 instances, classic EC2 instances. And once we had RDS, we transitioned the databases into RDS. And today, we are running, for all the customers, we are running their MySQL DBs on RDS. And MS SQL, we are still waiting for the multi-AZs. And that's there in the roadmap of Amazon. And once that's going to be available, we will transition MS SQL also to the MS SQL RDS. So the bottom line is make sure that you build a strategy around your migration for the move, and then position which business service has to go first and which at the last, and proceed accordingly. And during the course of the move, make sure that you don't replicate the infrastructure as is, but try to build it for the cloud. Only then you will leverage the benefits of the cloud.
Just want to add, most importantly, with all the strategizing and stuff like that, you have to certainly ensure the business understands the cloud skills and the capacity of the cloud for their use cases. and most importantly, learn from cloud experts and from solution providers like CSS, and you definitely will gain out of it. I would certainly urge not to underestimate the work required for integrating your cloud solutions to your traditional IT processes and stuff. You definitely have to work with a solution provider to architect it, not from a technology angle alone, from a service and the capability perspective as well.
And that's a great point, Vishy. Use expertise. And on that note, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to thank our presenters, especially our premier consulting partner, CSS Corp, Vishy and Raj, for a great overview and presentation, how to launch your campaign in 0 to 10. So thank you for joining us, folks. And before you drop off, we do invite you to take a very quick survey. We appreciate your feedback. And that does conclude today's webcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.